What's up, YouTube? It's your girl Mamba, and I am back for another movie review, and this one was a highly anticipated film for me, and as I'm sure for many of you guys who are Marvel fans. We had Spider-Man Far From Home come out during the holiday weekend, and yeah, like every other movie review I've had, this will have spoilers. So if you guys have not seen this film, do yourself a favor, get your ass up and get to the movies, because this is not one film you want to miss. So like my other reviews, I like to keep it quick and simple with these reviews. And a disclaimer, I have no interest in being some professional movie critic or anything like that. I can nitpick sometimes about certain things, but for the most part, I'm just talking about my opinion on the film, how I enjoyed it as an audience member, and how I enjoyed it as a fan of superheroes. So for this film, can I just tell you, I went to go see Spider-Man Far From Home last night, and I freaking loved it. It was amazing, guys. I had a smile from ear to ear the entire film. This movie had my hair all up. I was just blown away by this film. I have zero critiques as far as this movie is concerned, because I loved it. I'm sure there's little things that you can complain about, but I really didn't even care, because it was outshined by how incredible I loved this film. So I'm just going to talk about my favorite moments in this great, amazing adaptation of Spider-Man, the second adaptation of him, obviously. And I'm excited. So I am just going to talk about my favorite moments in this amazing kick-ass film, and you guys can let me know down below what you loved about it, and you can even comment what you didn't like about it. I know there's a lot of enthusiasts of Spider-Man, so you guys can nitpick about certain things that you didn't like down there. But for me, I think this movie was an A freaking plus. In a nutshell, the movie, as far as storyline, action, characters, all nailed it for me in every single category. But here are my favorite pros. The first one I want to start off with is Peter Parker's development. From the last film, and obviously we've seen him in Endgame and Captain America Civil War. We've been seeing bits and pieces of him in other ones, but going solely off of Homecoming, he's really developed as a character, and you can kind of see how he's been affected, obviously, by the war, just like everyone else. And also just him trying to take a freaking break and just kind of disconnect, because I think so many of us forget that even though he is so super and awesome, he is still just a high schooler who is just trying to deal with his life. And it's kind of crazy to imagine. I think that's what makes his character a little bit more special, because he's not like this grown adult willing to be a soldier and fight for everything. And obviously he wants to protect people, but he is still a child. So to see him struggle through that and trying to live his life and deal with high school and everything else, that was a really great element to it. Now, he had so many amazing moments in Homecoming with his dramatic acting when it came to him dealing with the vulture in the back of the car or in his house, or when the building collapsed on top of him, and how he was completely panicking. That was extremely human. Now we had this aspect of the movie, and I feel like it developed even more, just watching him struggle with his crush with MJ, just watching him deal with Nick Fury and how he didn't want to be dragged into this whole thing again, and dealing with the loss of Tony Stark and everyone else. So I think his dramatic acting and the maturity of Peter Parker based off of Tom Holland's acting was phenomenal. Loved watching Peter Parker grow. The second thing I really took away from this film is that Spider-Man's fighting technique and his abilities just really went up another level in this movie. I mean, there were so many incredible moments in Homecoming, especially the part with the fairy, but in this one, he has so many moments where oh my God, when he starts slinging away with his webs and he starts protecting buildings and he starts fighting, and how he uses it to fight, it just goes completely ham in this movie. I loved it. You don't want to blink in any of the fighting scenes in this, because you're gonna miss something incredible. So I really loved how they just keep escalating him. He's easily becoming my favorite Marvel character now, outside of Tony. It's just easy. The third thing I really took away from this film is, even though you're expecting a lot of comedy when it comes to Peter Parker, that's just naturally his character, there were so many other moments that were just even were even funnier to me. So like, for an example, on the bus when they're going to Prague and he puts on the glasses with Edith and he accidentally puts a strike on the other love character. I forgot his name because he's forgettable, okay? On the bus, and then he jumps out of the bus and he shoots at the droid. That scene, and he comes back down with his hair all crazy, but that slow motion and the pose and everything was just, oh, it was just so amazing. The bus scene was definitely a big favorite of mine, but there were so many in this movie. It's so hard. The fourth thing that I really, really enjoyed about this movie was actually Mysterio. Marvel always kind of struggles a little bit with development of villains, and even I honestly loved Vulture in Homecoming, so I think they did a really good job with that, and they did it even better, in my opinion, with Mysterio in this one, because Jake Gyllenhaal, even though I think, first of all, he's just incredible, he's gotten so much better with age. I love the kind of split character he played in this, where in the beginning he's such a likable character and such a believable character, and then when he switches into villain, it was a smooth transition. It didn't feel weird at all. He could do that, he could sell that really good character, and then when he went villainous, it really felt right. When you see how he kind of gets a little crazy and gets angry, some really good acting happened there, and just his character alone and the backstory behind Mysterio and his team and how they touch back all the way back to the first Iron Man and bringing characters back from other films was such an incredible thing. I honestly think they probably took a lot of cliff notes from the fact that a lot of fans loved that in Endgame when they jump back in other movies. So I really love that. The development of this villain was really, really cool. So that was a big A+ for me. Next thing that I really enjoyed about this was the love interests in this movie. And I say interests because there were a couple. So obviously there's Peter Parker and Mary J. And MJ in this film, I'm still kind of wrapping my head around this version of MJ, but what I'm really enjoying about this one is that she's not some cliche popular girl as we all know Mary Jane to be. So this one is a little bit more sarcastic and hilarious, and I really enjoy her character, and I do feel that Peter Parker and MJ in this adaptation have chemistry, as awkward as it would seem, because to me MJ is probably the most popular Marvel girlfriend, so it is very risky what they did, but it seems to be working so far. I'm not 100% on board, but there's chemistry and I'm liking it. So it was really, really good. But the love interest that really got me, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you, was Happy and Aunt May. That was amazing. I loved it. There were sparks. I'm like team Happy and Aunt May. It was incredible. And I love that little scene at the end where Spider-Man is talking to both of them and they had that awkward misunderstanding. That was really cute. Pro number 6 has to be my favorite scene in the entire film, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers would agree with me here. It has to be when Happy picks up Peter over at the Netherlands and they decide to go after Mysterio in London. So Peter starts working on his suit, but that moment where you start realizing he's looking so much like Tony, that moment that they really emphasize that tribute to him, because they put the Led Zeppelin song on, and even a moment where he's starting to work on it and Happy starts looking at him with this pride and love in his eyes, because it reminds him so much that he, without him knowing, as much as Peter was putting all this pressure on himself because he felt all the pressures from the world that he needs to take over and be the new Tony Stark, when really he just needs to just continue to develop and be his own man, because he's never going to be a Tony. He has to be Peter. In that moment where he's just doing his thing and you know that Peter is brilliant just like Tony, it was such an incredibly emotional moment for me. I loved it. Marvel does such a wonderful job showing love to these characters. And now to our fallen heroes, amazing tribute scene, favorite scene in the whole movie. Last thing I want to add to this movie review are just 2 Easter eggs that I noticed in this movie. There may be many more. I haven't seen any of the videos or any articles that discussed it, but the 2 little moments that really stood out to me, which they emphasized on, so I'm assuming they're Easter eggs. The first one being early on in the film when Parker was actually packing up his suit to go to Europe, and you notice these initials on the briefcase that said BFP, which I'm assuming is for his uncle Ben. So I'm not sure if that's an Easter egg or if they were just trying to pay tribute, but that felt like an Easter egg. So I'm not sure what that's going on, what's going to happen with that, because they haven't mentioned him before, but that should be really interesting. And the next one would have to be for Flash, the bully in this movie, which I wasn't too big of a fan of in the first film, and I kind of really liked him in this one because he was a really big comic relief in this, how he kept messing with Peter Parker even though he is such a big Spider-Man fan. So Flash Thompson, at the end when they arrive at the airport, it looked like a driver had showed up with the last name Thompson, and he said, oh, you know, mom couldn't make it. And that scene felt really out of place to me, so I'm assuming that is an Easter egg. I don't know where that's going for. I don't know if that's a little hint. I don't know if he's going to become a villain. I don't know what's going on there, but that's really, really interesting. So those were the 2 Easter eggs I picked up. Did you guys pick up any? If you did, comment it down below. Let's talk about it. Any predictions? Comment it down below. And also, that after credit scene was really intriguing. I mean, outside of the really cool one in the mid credits where Mysterio had his little secret plan and he gave away Peter Parker's identity, Spider-Man's identity, and wasn't expecting that. That was a big wow moment. You're thinking like, oh, woo, the hero triumphs again, but he gotcha. That was a really good little thing to leave us with, as well as getting us psyched for the 3rd film, which made me really happy. But the ending credits had the whole aliens that were pretending they were shapeshifters that pretended to be Maria and Nick Fury, and Nick Fury's on some like space mission. That was really interesting. I feel like I've seen those aliens before. I don't know if they were in Guardians of the Galaxy or Thor. If you guys know what alien race it is or where we've seen them before, make sure you comment it down below. Any predictions on that? Because I was kind of like, what? So I'm really, really happy with this film, guys. You guys let me know how'd you feel about it. I loved Spider-Man. I have absolutely 0 complaints about this movie. Thank you, Marvel, for doing this. I swear, I just honestly just bring all the characters back to Marvel because they know how to do it, okay? Bring back X-Men, bring back everyone, because I am just so in love with what Marvel does with their movies. So anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this movie review, and I will check you out in my next one. Peace and chicken grease.